Okay, so what's on your mind?
On my mind, basically, I was thinking a bit about why am I so afraid of my job, or to be precise, why is my mind so defensive about me time?
Do you have
I
it?
think
Did you have any?
one major,
Did you have any dreams last night?
yes,
Oh, good. You want to tell me about
I
them?
don't remember one.
You must remember something. Anything.
I had a dream today afternoon when I was taking a 30-minute nap.
Okay, good.
I don't. And the weird thing was, I was, how should I say, aware that I was in a dream.
Good. Say more.
And I think I was in a building, I believe, on one of the stairs.
Uh-huh.
I would say in 7th or 8th floor, or 9th floor to be frank, like high up, but not so high.
Okay.
And like I was going down the stairs,
Uh-huh.
and when I went down, I reached a floor which had its guardrails way lower than it should have been. And like I was standing on some platform.
And what are you saying? The guard was what? What about the guard rail?
Guardrail being way too small or way too low.
Okay, too small or too low. Good.
Less in height.
Good.
Yeah, and that was the exact point why when I realized I am in a dream.
Okay.
And I think that is also the exact point when I was afraid. Because I'm afraid of heights, and I saw that I may fall from that ledge or the guardrail. And I think that's about it, I would say.
All right, good.
I don't know.
Okay, good. Now take a deep breath. Clear out the air from your lungs. Settle your breath down. I want you to tell me the dream again, starting from the very beginning, and give your feelings and as much detail about what you're seeing and the whole dream and your feelings while you're dreaming as you tell me the dream, okay?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so I dreamed of being in a building with lots of apartments, being in like 8th or 9th floor, but not so high, like higher than that. I was standing in one of the 7th or 8th floors, and far away I can see greenery of trees, most probably a forest.
You could see what? You could see what?
Greenery.
Greenery, okay, good. Keep going.
And I was, for some reason, going down, feeling nothing as far as I know. But when I came to the floor below, I realized that I am standing in a platform that's a bit higher than the floor below, and the guardrails were a bit shorter than it used to be. So like, it felt like this place I was standing at, right? You can say it as a staging platform or something. That if I were to continue walking, I can easily fall off that floor because guardrails were pretty small. And it was all bright, like the whiteness that you get when you arrive at a concrete jungle.
The whiteness you get when you arrive where?
when you like go to a concrete jungle, like the all the buildings that you have these days,
Concrete jungle.
concrete jungle.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think it was exactly at this point when I started getting scared that what if I fall off from that ledge?
Uh-huh.
And also at that same time, I was aware that I'm in a dream. And I think all this setup it somewhat reminds me of my time during it reminds me of the home that we lived at during my teenage years.
Okay.
We lived at almost in a colony, I would say. Like my dad worked at, my dad was a government employee. He was a mechanical engineer, and they had these apartments, these concrete jungle type building apartments, and we used to live in sixth floor. So
Okay.
the common area reminds me of that. Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Yeah. That's. But yeah, this dream. This is something that I had during my 30-minute nap. So I don't know.
Now, does your dream remind you of anything that you were doing during the day or were about to do or anything like that? Something you'd see on TV? Something
Something that I see on TV.
on TV or on, on a billboard, talking to a friend or a picture in a magazine?
I don't remember,
Okay.
but I can look out for today's one.
You can what?
I can look out for or try to remember my dream if I have one today.
Was it how tall is the building you're in now?
And like this is like 4 stories high,
Okay.
and we are living at first story, like first floor.
And how many stories in the building in which you work?
I work as in I am doing work from home right now, so I haven't visited my office yet.
Okay. All right. So
But
that's a
I
very
believe
good dream. That's a very good dream. Now, what do you think it's about?
I don't know. I would say it just points to my tendency to like imagine the worst case scenario.
It's a lot more than
That's what
that.
happened with
It's a lot more than that. I'm not even sure it's that. So let's take a look at it. First of all, you have a fear of heights. Is that correct?
Yes.
But yet you were on the 8th or 9th or maybe even 10th floor, correct?
Not right now.
No, during the dream.
But yes.
And you were going downward, correct?
On stairs, so I was not falling. But
Right.
yeah,
But you were going downward on the steps.
yes.
So imagine you're a novelist or a playwright or a poet, and you have this image of someone going down the steps and you have someone going up the steps. What do those bring to your mind? There's no wrong answers here, by the way. What does that bring to your mind?
Like if someone's going down the steps and going up the steps while looking forward, then I would say he or she's reversing time. But
Even if she's reversing time, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
yeah, it's like when you are like recording someone and you like rewind the tape, so it looks like that person is going back up.
Okay. Now, when you think about heaven and hell, which directions are they?
Sorry, can you repeat?
When you think about heaven and hell, what
Yeah.
directions are they in, respectively?
Hell in downward direction and heaven in upward
Absolutely, that's true in
towards
every
sky.
that's true in every religious culture that I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
So for a man to ascend, that means he's progressing on his way to truth or to God or to love or to beauty or to peace, right? To go
Yes.
up is that, right? Now, if he's coming down,
Yes.
he's not headed in that direction. He's headed in the opposite direction, right?
Yes.
Of course, there's things like this happen, right? And so, can we
Yes.
agree that if, going up a staircase or going down a staircase in this case probably refers to making progress on the way, making progress on the past the truth and peace and happiness and joy, and going down is moving away from that. But the interesting thing is that you saw these guardrails, and it's not that they were not there. It's not that they were all broken up. It was that they were too small for you now. Right?
Yes.
So now if we look at your journey, right? If we look at your journey, whether you know it or not, at any given moment, you have been making progress upward, right?
Yes. Yes.
But every now and then you regress. You turn around, you start going the other direction, right?
Yeah.
Right? But now when you go the other direction, you notice that, wait a minute, the guardrails, the safety net, the rationalizations, the escape hatches, all of that I used to have before, they're getting to be too small, right?
Yes.
Because you've outgrown them. Hey, did you have a little bicycle? Would you have a bicycle when you were a little kid?
Yeah. Yeah. I had.
Is it still around?
I don't know. No, sorry, it's
Oh.
not still around.
Well, if you look at it now, the wheels and the turning wheels, they look very, very small to you. Because you've
Yes,
grown, because
I
you've grown, because you've grown. And so, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, let's say you have guardrails for kids. Let's say you have guardrails for kids that are 7 years old to keep them from leaving the house. Well, when that's kid 17, those guardrails aren't going to be nearly enough, right?
In fact, it might trip them.
Yeah, it could trip them. Yeah, it could even trip them. So, do you have any idea what the dream might mean?
Sorry.
Do you have any idea what the dream might mean now?
Yeah.
Giving you a few
means
hints?
I am regressing and not necessarily regressing.
Yeah, it was just a few stories.
I'm just afraid of regressing a lot. That there is a possibility that if the guardrails have lowered, and there is a strong possibility that I may fall.
They aren't lowered, no, they're just too small. They're too small.
Yeah, they are too small, and it's just that I'm just looking in the downward direction.
Right. See, the only reason the guardrails are even an issue is because you're headed in the wrong direction, right? During a regression. All right. So what do you want to? So now tell me what's on your mind.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Whatever comes to mind. If two things come to mind at the same time, talk about the one you would rather not talk about. Right. It's called free association.
Yeah.
Actually, let me give you those rules,
so
right? When I ask you to free associate, I want you to tell me whatever it is that comes to mind, everything that comes to mind, without censoring it, right? If two things come to mind at the same time, if two things come to mind at the same time, say the one that you would rather not talk about. And those are the rules for dream interpretation, free association interpretation, and other things. But those are the rules, okay? So keep going.
Okay, so yes, one of the prime. So one of the thoughts that I keep thinking is during my work. I've been working a lot for last few weeks, mainly because of a product that we are releasing at the end of the Jan. And during my holidays, I was afraid of the work that forever, like for rest of my life, I'll be just working for whole day, like I have been working for last few weeks, and it felt suffocating. But the thing is, I can't escape from this as well. Like,
not at the
even
moment.
other job will always have this possibility. Sorry?
You can't escape at the moment.
Yes.
But you could escape when your desire to escape becomes stronger than your aversion to remaining there. You will escape. You don't have to worry about that part. You don't have to worry about it at all. Okay, now, what else comes to mind?
Yeah, but all this is ironic given all these problems are created by these thoughts themselves. Like, it's not that I hate my job. I'm neutral to it. I am able to do work for long hours. I was having a meeting late at night, and I'll be having a meeting late at night today as well. And I felt fulfilled at the end of the day. But when next day comes, my mind is afraid of it.
Yeah. So that's not even your thoughts, you know. Those aren't your thoughts. I'd say that probably, I don't know, let me take a guess, 50% of the people there are having similar thoughts. The good ones and the bad ones.
Okay.
And then if you look across India, then the majority of people are having those same thoughts.
Yeah.
And then if you look across the world, the majority of men your age are having those thoughts, right? There's no you there. There's no you there to have the thoughts, right? I know. It seems so hard to imagine. Well, wait a minute. How can these not be my thoughts? They're in my brain, right? I'm the one having them, but you're not the one having them. I can prove it to you very easily. Like right now, I'm looking at a yellow sparrow, but it's got two heads and yellow legs.
But that's something that you thought about.
Correct. Now, that also happens at an unconscious level. You ever seen a school of fish swim, a big school of fish? When they turn together?
Yeah, it's as if they're synchronized.
Yeah. Have you ever seen, do you know what starlings are?
Yeah, I saw that video that you suggested.
Okay. And then have you ever seen bees when they're trying to convince an owl that they're just one big organism instead of individuals?
Yes. It's as if they're synchronized.
No, they are synchronized. They're all having the same thought. All of them. And humans have the same thing, right? But we're too crude to sense it.
Is that how stock market crashes happen?
Oh, yeah. That's overt. I mean, you could see that. You can record that on a tape recorder. This stuff is a little more subtle, but yeah, that's how it works. It's called contagion. Have you ever gone to a rock concert or to a concert and noticed everybody's jumping around, everybody's so excited they're about to piss their pants, they're so excited? And then the star comes on and the whole crowd goes wild and they start chanting. It's like one person chanting.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. It's called affective contagion. And the same thing happens with thoughts. You don't know this yet, but if you meditated more, you could feel thoughts that don't belong to you. Like, for example, I have no. This is early on, but I had no particular feelings about, let's say, Russia and Ukraine or Israel and Hamas, right?
Yes.
Or the United States and Yemen. I didn't have much feeling about those at all. But then I noticed in meditation I was getting these very strong feelings And frankly,
Okay.
I didn't care, right? Because those weren't my interests, right? Probably shouldn't have used Israel, Hamas, or Ukraine, but it was anything like that, right? Or you could look at
Like
it
if
with,
you are able to,
pardon me, what?
I was thinking if you are able to differentiate what your thoughts are and what others' thoughts are,
Yeah,
then you can kind of guess what others are thinking.
exactly.
Most often than not, right?
Easily. Yeah, that's part of how mind to mind. That's how we can read hearts, right? We can read hearts that way.
Yeah.
We can read minds
The
and heart, but
sixth
it's
sense
more
that people
reading heart than it is necessarily the mind, because the details may or may not be there. For example, let me see if I can get an example. This has nothing to do with me, but it's probably a pretty good example. You're going along someday, and all of a sudden you start to, just as an example, you have these strong feelings of hatred towards Pakistanis, right?
Okay.
And you're not involved in any of that stuff, but they're still there, and sometimes it stays for days, right? And you go, weird, that's wild.
Yes.
And then because you know yourself, you know your mind, you know that you don't have, you yourself don't particularly have strong feelings towards Pakistanis or whites in South Africa. You know what's going on there, right? They're calling for the genocide of the white people.
Yeah.
But you
Yes.
get these strange, and it's called ego dystonic. They're ego dystonic feelings in your mind. I said feelings. So it's thoughts, but they have feeling to them, right?
Is it like a collective ego that has?
Yes, it's collective consciousness, exactly. Exactly, that's what it is. And it's easily observable. Just look around or just pay attention. And so you'll find that a lot of the thoughts that you think are yours, especially the ones you feel bad about, if you know your mind, this is why it's really important to know your mind. And it's the only reason for knowing, for meditating, is so you can get to know your mind. But once you know your mind, you can say, wait a minute, whoa, I don't have these feelings towards the Palestinians, let's say. I just don't have those feelings. But yet, you wake up one day and you do have those feelings, right? So this becomes
Couldn't this all?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, couldn't this all be influenced because of media that is?
There was
days?
no media about South Africa back in that time, or Pakistan. Even now,
Yeah.
I mean, people may mention it this way or other, but what do I care what do I care what's going on in Kashmir?
Yeah.
And I could give you other examples, but the AIs are listening, and we're not on a secure line, and so I have to be careful. But yeah, so if you just realize that that's possible, and that's what you're headed towards, you'll be able to read people's minds, their hearts.
For that to happen, I need to get out of my own cage that was built or is built by ego.
Yeah, let me give you another example. That you could stop me if I've given it before, and then you could tell me the story instead. When I was younger than you, when I was in my early 20s, I was in training to be a psychiatrist, right?
Okay. Yes.
And every Wednesday afternoon, I think it was afternoon. What do you think? No, it was just before lunch. It was just before lunch. Just before lunch. Okay.
You guys.
I'm sorry, what?
So every Wednesday afternoon, right before lunch, I would say you guys had a meeting or had a get together with everyone else and went together to have lunch.
Afterwards, after this meeting. I'm just trying to put it in a time of the day, so it was late morning, right? And there would be a room with about 20 people in it, with 2 chairs in the
Okay.
front. 2 chairs in the front. Now, in the room were medical students, nurses, other doctors, some residents, some interns, some psychology students. It was a mixture of clinical people, right? We were there to learn, right?
Yes.
Okay, now, I'll just give it from the first person. I would sit in the chair on the left, right? And, say, good morning, everybody. This is our Wednesday morning clinical rounds, grand rounds. They're going to bring me a patient in just a few minutes for me to examine in front of you, to talk to and examine, right? Examine their brain, their mind, their functioning, make a diagnosis.
Okay.
And in a few minutes, one of the nurses from one of the floors
Okay. Yes.
would bring in a patient I'd never seen before, right? And so for 20 minutes, I'd introduce I'd stand up and welcome her to her chair. And then I'd say, hi, I'm Dr. Arredondo. Thank you for agreeing to do this. This is voluntary, but it really helps out if we can, do these kinds of evaluations in front of the group so everybody can learn. And she goes, and the patient says, yeah, okay, fine. And then I'd ask her about her life, and I'd ask her about her symptoms, and I'd ask her about how things were going for her in the hospital, and things like that, trying to make a diagnosis, right? Because my goal was to make a diagnosis so they would know what to do. Got me so far?
Yes.
Okay, then after about 20 minutes, I'd say something like, well, it looks like our 20 minutes is up. Thank you so much for being here. You've helped a lot of people, and that should feel good, does it? And invariably they say, yeah, it feels good. They're glad they could help, and they thank me in return, right? Then
Yes.
the nurses from the other floor come down and get her, and they take her out of the door on the left, okay? So now it's just me sitting alone in my chair, and I'm looking at my watch, waiting for the attending, right? Waiting for the senior psychiatrist to come in, right? And we wouldn't really say anything during that time. We'd just be quiet, right? We'd think about the case and the person and the human being, and we just, gotten to know from a clinical point of view. And then after about a minute or two, the senior psychiatrist would walk in, and unlike us, he's like dressed up really nicely. He's got a nice suit, and he's, he knows what he's doing, he knows what he's talking about, and all of a sudden. So we're happy to see him, right? So he walks in the door, and before he sits down, he looks over the crowd and he says, oh, a case of depression, I like those. Or we go, oh, a case of mania. Oh, I like those. Or, oh, a patient of obsessive compulsive disorder. Yeah, those are tricky. And then, oh, a patient with schizophrenia, right? And so he'd make the diagnosis without asking me anything. And then he'd sit down and he'd ask me to present the case, right? And I'd say, yes, this is a 32-year-old woman who's been hospitalized for 4 months. She's never married, never divorced. She noticed the onset of her symptoms at about 18. She started to lose her ability to concentrate and began dressing strange according to her parents. Her taste in music's changed radically, and she stopped seeing her friends, and she spent more and more time in her room, and this and that, and I just keep talking for a while. And then I get to the diagnosis, and the diagnosis would be exactly what the doctor had said, right?
Yes.
Have you heard the story before?
I've heard it from somewhere. don't remember.
Okay, all right. So I'm giving you an example. This is oral knowledge, right? It's not written down in books. Okay, so remember it. So now, how was the doctor, the senior attending doctor, the guy in the nice suit, how was he able to make a diagnosis on a patient without talking to the patient?
How was?
The doctor, the senior doctor, he made a diagnosis when he first walked in the room, right? He didn't need to talk to me. He didn't need to talk to anybody else. He would just come in and say, this is the diagnosis. Oh, this is a case of schizophrenia, right? Now, my question to you is, how could the doctor know what the diagnosis was if he'd never seen the patient, did not know the patient's name, did not know the patient's age, did not know anything about the patient, did not speak to the patient, and did not speak to me, and did not read the chart? How could he make the diagnosis? And he did this every week, right? Correctly.
Maybe he looked at all of your people's reaction towards it.
Exactly. But he didn't look, he could feel it.
Okay.
You see? So you can see how much information gets conveyed that way. Plenty to make the diagnosis. More than enough. So they were acting as reservoirs of the affect, of the mentation, of the thoughts and feelings, the hopes and fears of that particular patient, right? And even though they weren't trying to do this, nobody in the crowd knew what was going on either, right? They're just students. They carried the imprint of that patient. And through that mechanism that you very beautifully described, they were able to make the diagnosis. All right? So now, let's get to starlings and big schools of fish and bees, when they're working very, very obviously collectively. Or we could even talk about tissues of the body. How do these things know what the other's thinking and about to do? The same way. They're attuned to different frequencies as humans are, right?
Yes.
But they're attuned to their frequency. And so one of the purposes for meditation is so you can read the room, right? So you can know what's going on around you without even having to open your mouth.
But I feel like that's what Eckhart says when he says to be in the present, right?
Oh yeah, you can only do it in the present. And actually you can't do anything except in the present. This is included in that.
Yes.
So being in the present gets to be a real difficult thing for people because they obsess about what the present is. And from a scientific, but I want to make sure you've gotten this other thing about being able to tell when something's not your own thoughts, not your own feelings, because it comes from somewhere else, and you know your mind well enough to know that it doesn't come from you. So let's say all of a sudden I'm walking around and all of a sudden I really, really hate North Koreans, let's say, or South Koreans or whatever, Mongolians, it doesn't matter, right? And I'm having a strong feeling of antipathy towards them. Now, I know my own mind. I don't have thoughts like that. So I know they must come from the outside. Okay? And the only reason I'm able to do that, and everybody can do it, frankly, is that I know how to keep my mind pretty calm, right? And so I'm sensitive to these things now. Okay. Now, so you complain of fear and anxiety. How much of that do you think is you, and how much of it do you think is the ambient environment? You understand that ambient environment?
Yes.
Okay. So how would you tell?
It's difficult to to tell if I fully identify with it?
Well, it's impossible to tell if you identify with it. If you identify with it, it owns you and you don't know it, right? So yeah, it's impossible if you identify with it. But since this is a feeling that you're very familiar with, right, it's going to be harder for you to separate that out, okay? But one of the goals of this work is to give you some freedom from your mind. But in order to do that, you have to know your mind. But in order to do that, you have to have some distance from your mind